All right, everybody. Hello and welcome. It is Tuesday, July 14th. Actually, now that I think about it, it's also Bastille Day since we were speaking about French. The French. You are here for how to land a job for the remainder of 2026. This is your mid-year reality check for strategies that work and where to go next in this very uncertain and I would say very interesting job market. My name is Albert. I'm the founder of Albert's List. We're a job search, side hustle, and AI education company, helping you become the most resilient professional possible, especially in this uncertain job market. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available to you either later today or sometime tomorrow. And we'll be following up with you with various emails around where the job market is headed and where things are going. Um, a little other bit of a housekeeping. You do see the webinar chat flying here. Feel free to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're dialing in from. We also have a survey here just to have folks answer on where they think the job market is headed. And you can also let us know, who you think is going to win tomorrow between England and Argentina and then the rest of this World Cup. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started here, and we'll go to the next slide down. All right, cool. So my name is Albert. I am a San Francisco Bay Area born and raised entrepreneur, living here on the California Central Coast and splitting my time here in Silicon Valley. Um, I'm also a product marketing manager by day, and you can find my LinkedIn QR code right there above. Feel free to scan it. I'm also the founder of Albert's List, a community of 50,700 members on Facebook, connecting job seekers, hiring managers, job opportunities, and more. So feel free to join us at bit.ly/slash find your next job. I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in there just in case folks are in there. This is a Facebook group, so if you don't have Facebook, don't fret. You probably got here via Eventbrite, and that's just where we do most of our engagement with our audience. So there is a community everywhere to be had, and this webinar chat is also one way to be there to ask for advice, meet other people, and say hello as well. Our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about where we've been, right? So we've just got through the first half of the year. We're going to talk a little bit about some of these stats and trends that are really changing how we're looking at this job search. We're going to look at industries to go towards, tactics that still work, and then some of the honest truth for the job seekers who might be stuck, and then upcoming opportunities with Albert's List, where you can really take yourself to the next level if you're looking for. We have a combination of free and paid events that I think you will find compelling to add to your calendar. So, what's the first half of 2026 looking like, right? There was, I think, a continuation of what we saw a lot of in 2025 and maybe even bits and pieces of 2024. I think for those of you who work in tech, this is definitely still the toughest job market we're seeing in 2008. There are more job seekers than openings, and that continues to be the case. Although sometimes I think we're starting to see a little bit of that change, and we're going to see that in the next few slides here as we talk things through. Not adding to the, I think, ease of what's been going on is the Iran war, which has been going on for the last 5 months or so now. And so, um, your belief about geopolitics aside, the war is creating a lot of economic uncertainty, and it's also leading to the rising of the cost of goods, right? So, inflation did fall to 3.5% today. But overall, right, gas prices are high. Gas prices are probably going back on the way up because the ceasefire is now over. And that means everything from the goods that you buy in the store to the gas that you pay for to the companies who want to hire but are uncertain because that one next individual is going to hit their supply chain is going to make things incredibly difficult. And then the final, I think, third thing that we're seeing in this first half of the year is that the AI mania continues. Um, we're seeing the Magnificent Seven spend more and more of their capital expenditures on AI, and we're seeing some pushback now from the industry because ROI is not quite there, the growth numbers are not quite there, and we're also starting to see, in some sense, companies that are hiring again. James, yes, there will be a recording of this presentation. It is going to go on our YouTube channel, and so check your email for when it comes through so that you can see it. And so, yeah, this is some of the numbers and some of the tables that we're seeing. The U.S. unemployment rate is briefly went above 4.6 late last year. It is now back down to 4.2%. Now, of course, things may not always seem as they seem because the unemployment rate is actually the measure of people who are looking for work and also getting benefits from the US government or their state governments as they look for work. So there may be very long-term unemployed people who really who don't get counted in this. And that usually generally goes to what they call the U6 rate in the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the United States, at least, which is almost at least double this number of 4.2. And so 4.2 is generally a number that suggests full employment, but it doesn't suggest the people who might have dropped off. And that may include some of you who maybe have hunted for so long that you are now into your savings and that unemployment is no longer enough. Um, Similarly, right, we also see that, since really 2022, 4 years ago, when inflation topped out at 9%, it's dropped all the way down into the 3.5% range since being above four last month. This month, it generally seems to be a good thing that it's down to 3.5, but escalations with Iran have resumed with the United States at least. And so that means prices may be going all the way back up. And so you may be asking yourself, why is Albert talking about geopolitics? I came here for a job search conversation, not to talk about things that are going on and people firing bombs at each other. And so the good and bad of that is that what happens abroad and what happens around the world, especially in areas where you have key choke points like the Strait of Hormuz, is that when key economic regions are, I would say, compromised due to other things, that has a downstream effect into what happens in the job market. And I feel like I use the word downstream effect a lot. And I'm probably going to hear that a lot during this conversation today, too. And that's the fact that in today's world and in today's market, the world is very interconnected. And so if you are buying things abroad, like clothing or electronics, and even in this case, right, hard drives, the cost of all those things are going to go significantly higher because it costs more to transport, and there's more risk involved. The insurance goes up and so forth. And so, what does that mean for companies, right? Companies can continue to grow this time. They can continue to make sales and so forth, but they can also struggle a little bit to hire more people because every single person that you hire now is going to be something that eats into the margins of the company. And so, yeah, I think that we're getting to a point where companies are going to have to make that choice, and they're going to have to either bite bullets and so forth. Rachel says, graduated in business analytics. I did learn coding in AI. LLMs are scary. I don't think it will be long before we have an LLM teaching an AI how to act more human and start taking more and more jobs online or remote. I have been applying to any job within coding, IT, and data analytics with no luck. I don't have any idea what to do. So yes, feel free to reach out to folks in this chat today. Let's network with one another. I think that the LLM thing is super interesting. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit here because I think it's one thing to talk about the software, and I think it's another thing to talk about the trend. Um, but yes, networking is going to help. I would also say that doing your own projects is going to help. If you're entry level, right, it's going to be difficult, especially because a lot of those jobs have are repeatable and have gone by way of AI, and so it's interesting to see where that'll go. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. Um, what we've also seen this year for, this where the world is going is that there's been a lot of layoffs, right? So this is going back to last July when Intel cut a lot of people because they were struggling. And then, this year we've seen a lot of layoffs with Amazon, my former employer, Oracle cut 30,000 people. Dell cut a few people. Meta keeps cutting. HP is going to cut a few over the next couple of years. And it's an interesting thing in terms of why they're cutting. I think the top line that you're seeing with a lot of these companies is that they're doing a lot of layoffs, but in reality, what they're doing is they're cutting because of AI capital expenditure spending. Um, And so that's exactly what Oracle did because they're not exactly struggling to make money, but what they are doing is they are going into big deals with OpenAI and they're going into gigantic into AI deals with other companies, and the ROI isn't necessarily, I think, there in return. And so we're starting to see some of that come back as well as some of the pushback from the broader industry. And so this is a tale of, I think, two really interesting things, right? So in 2024, we had 18,000 layoffs attributed to AI. That is almost 10x to the first half of 2026, where you have 165,000 layoffs that have happened due to AI. On the other hand, what we're also starting to see is what we're calling the AI boomerang, is that companies are starting to lay off, but they're also to realize that maybe they actually need people because AI can't necessarily do everything that they said that they would do. So the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, I don't know if any of you are from Australia here today, um, but what we're looking at there is they cut 45 customer service roles after rolling out an AI voice bot, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out the way that they anticipated it to. Ford also rehired 350 engineers after AI fell short. And Alex Gomez, you're in the chat here. You know this because you've been talking to me about this for the last couple of months. Is that there's a lot of other employers that are starting to hire back because they realize that employees are becoming cheaper than AI tokens. Um, the companies that over-indexed on AI infrastructure and are doing the math on it are realizing that humans are cheaper in a lot of ways, right? We saw many of you might have seen earlier this year that Uber, the ride-sharing company, spent something like $50 million of their AI budget for token budget in just the first quarter or first half of the year. And they looked at that and they're like, what did we get out of that? And they said, really not all that much. And so we're starting to see this situation where even Microsoft, right, is cutting back on Claude token usage, and all these other companies are starting to cut back on token usage. And as a result, right, some of these jobs are starting to come back, but what you do in that whole entire process does still matter. And so what we see, I think, with employees being cheaper than AI tokens and this overall trend is that how does that become a downstream impact? You're going to get into this situation where companies realize that humans are still a lot cheaper. They're going to start unsubscribing or using a whole lot less of the chat GPTs and Claudes and so forth of the world. And you're going to have these companies that have spent a ton of money on AI and they're not going to have much to speak for it. And so we're going to get to a point where the chickens are going to come home to roost. The investors are going to want their money back. Maybe these AI companies are going to look for some kind of bailout and it's going to change. Now, on the consumer end, I think it's really Varosak here actually has a really good point. What about local AI and open source models? Those are significantly cheaper than frontier models. I think what that actually ends up becoming is that's where the trend is. You're going to have people using DeepSeek. You're going to have companies using these cheaper frontier models to try and make up that gap for that productivity. However, AI sovereignty is still a thing too, because we have a rivalry with China when it comes to AI and AI chips and all this stuff, and this race for AI. And so, if all of a sudden U.S. companies and U.S. consumers pivot to using DeepSeek and all these other ones that are in fact much cheaper, but are you also willing to compromise the United States position when it comes to AI in the world? And so, that's going to be a super interesting debate, I think, for the second half of the year. And so that is, yeah, local models are also questionable with tools. And so that's super interesting. And so the thing that I like to say to people these days is that if AI is going to take your job, it's not necessarily that AI is going to take your job, but the company needs to find that it needs to find a way to recoup its AI capex will. And so that's why it's important to understand the layoffs. That's why it's important to really read between the lines because there are all these companies that on certain Fridays of this year have posted that they're laying off 20% of their staff for some reason, right? Like Upwork or any of these other guys. And then you go and you read the fine print and it says that, oh, we're struggling. Revenue is down, everything and so forth. And so it is getting to a place where um is getting to this place where it's becoming more difficult. Modred makes a really great point. A lot of us senior engineers are creating GitHub repos that LLMs parse with large security issues and processing bottlenecks. This is creating a situation where AI coding creates intentional security holes and memory bottlenecks. We are also poisoning things like legal, healthcare, and financial data. You're encouraged to participate in this poisoning so that AI doesn't take your job. And so, that is the that is going to be an issue too, right? I think there's a lot of pushback, and I think that I think that we like to keep it real here on Albert's List. Those who know. And so, if you are feeling worried about AI, I think I was worried too many months ago, and I'm still a little worried, but I think what I also think about is how the things that industry has to overcome in order to reach their most bull case of taking all of our jobs and creating a level of future abundance still requires overcoming a lot of the physical sciences and a lot of things that we haven't really truly considered, such as energy usage and all of that. And then, on the other hand, right, like Alex also says, there is no positive outcome. If AI fails, the entire economy will go with it. And so this is actually my other theory. And if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you might hear it here first, is that we might get to a point where the AI majors here, right? And I'm going to actually go to my next slide. This is off a slide called isaiprofitable.com. It's one of my favorite sites these days because I go to it and it shows you how much these companies have lost and how much money they have to make up. So in that sense, right, Amazon has spent something like 330 billion and they've made back 27 billion. And so the way that I theorize is that one of these days investors are going to call their investment back and they're going to go to a Meta, they're going to go to an Alphabet and Anthropic and an OpenAI and say, I put $100 million into you, and I think I'm going to get 50 million back, and that's not okay. You're going to need to find a way to make this work. And so, if you're in America, you know that what we do in this country is that we privatize our gains and we socialize our losses. Apologies to any capitalist apologists here. I'm not trying to be political. I'm just putting it out there the way it is. If you remember the Great Recession, we privatized the gains for real estate and we socialized the losses for everyone in the housing market by bailing out the car companies, by bailing out the banks while leaving everybody else on the side. Patterns exist in this world, and it seems like this country is full of patterns all the way from the start. So, the way that I think things are going to work is this. I think all of these companies that are the AI majors are going to go to Congress and they're going to go to the Senate and they're going to say, we have all these data centers, we have all this AI infrastructure, and it needs to be used somehow. What you're going to do is you're going to, for the difference of all of this money that we've spent and haven't made back, you're going to write a check in that amount and you're going to stick it into your next National Defense Authorization Act, the act that covers basically how we surveil people and how we look at national defense here in the United States. And we're going to turn those data centers into government run surveillance centers where we're going to have social scores. We're going to have we're going to have surveillance. We're going to have basically all the data that's fit to print within those running and figuring out what your next step is as people. And so what does that all mean, right? That essentially means that us as US taxpayers and maybe even taxpayers abroad are going to be on the hook for all of these losses at some point. There's no way out of it. As long as you're a paying member of society, that's just how things are going to be. And so I don't know if you've heard this anywhere else, but you might hear this here first, and that's just where things are headed. I don't like it either, but I guess if it saves the economy, then we'll just have to lament that wherever it goes. All right. So going back into the jobs pieces, I would say that um, where we're also at is that the quits rate is also significantly down. We hit our max here at a 2% rate here in March of 2026. And this pales in comparison to when we had the Great Resignation between April of 2021 and April of 2022, when people were switching jobs and things were going well and people were very confident about changing. Um, this also means that the job market is a lot more competitive. And it also means that as you're out there, there are fewer jobs for you to go for because you may be you are competing against more people, but also because people aren't leaving their jobs to go elsewhere. It is absolutely an employer's market, which means that you have to do more to stand out and to be more competitive, or you really just need to have a lot of AI or whatever is really trendy in the market right now. Thankfully, there are still tactics along the way that work in this current job market. And there are also some things that we have to consider that don't work like they used to. We're going to start with the one that didn't work, that doesn't work like it used to. And that is that the ATS is no longer your path in. I think one thing that I've seen in this job market is that it is now AI versus AI. It is an arms race between job seekers and HR departments because they both use AI to try to filter each other out or try to get each other into each other's systems. These days, ATSs are incredibly tough to go into because you're looking at black holes, you're in a competitive market. A lot of companies have those jobs lined up and they're posted because they want to show that there's traffic and there's a momentum, even though they may not hire for those jobs. And that's what we like to call ghost jobs. And so, what actually does move the needle these days? Well, for the 100 or so of you who are in this webinar today, it's being here. It's getting in front of decision makers. It's networking in spaces where hiring power exists. And that's not just LinkedIn, but also your professional associations, it's referrals, it's people who are friendly enough to pass you on and help you out. And so, if you're here, and you're in this webinar today, you never know who somebody might know. You don't know if that person is somebody that you're meeting on LinkedIn, is connected to a recruiter that can help you out. And even for those of you who may be in the United States and looking for a foreign country to move to, there may be an opportunity to do that too, where you can go and you can talk to folks and they could connect you to other places and you might find yourself in a different state or something else in a few months. Your resume, however, at the end of the day, and your profile and your background still needs to be clean. So your personal brand needs to be good, your resume needs to be well written, and that needs to be what helps you get to the next step. So what does work, right? Tactic number one is to network, and you have to do it with precision. And so if this is your first networking event of the year, maybe your first networking event of the month, I applaud you for getting here because it is at least the first place to go where you need to be, but it should not be the last. Not all networking is created equal, and not all of it is also a very good use of your time because if you're going to random mixers, if you're going to events that aren't very well curated, you need to be doing that, right? So you have to go where decision makers are. You have to go to conference happy hours. You need to go to professional association events where you're going to find those people. General networking events like the ones that Albert's List does in person, they can be good too. But you're going to also want to be a little bit more focused than that because my events help you open the door to those more focused events. You're also going to want to choose your rooms wisely. So if you aren't doing that yet, you definitely need to be doing that, right? So these are industry specific Slack groups for those who work in marketing or software engineer, niche meetups, alumni networks, paid communities. You need to go to quality over quantity. And of course, also choose rooms like this where you're amongst friendly people, where you can network and where you can say hi and learn all the necessary skills to stay connected because sometimes staying connected is really tough. Um, Zainab, I would share your profile here because again, you never know who you may know. And you would say, if you want to move to France, right? Rita can probably help you here in the chat. Because, hey, you never know who you may know. And so if you want to go work in Paris and get your entire month of August off and get your summers off, that might be the lifestyle, especially given where we are with everything these days. And then number three is to show up and lead with value. I think I see a lot of places where people show up to networking events and they're wallflowers, they're having a drink, they're eating the food, but they're not diving deep into the networking. So, if you are here, right, and I'll just be transparent, there's 95 of you here in the attendee room. If you haven't had a chance to say hello yet, that's exactly what you should do. You should get out there. You should put yourself out there so that people can see that you're here, but also so that you can have a conversation with them, because it's not just the first conversation, but it's the next conversation. Jerry says, "What are your thoughts on using a executive placement agency where you pay for their services, but they guarantee to stay with you until you get your job?" Interesting. So I'm a yes on the first half of that, where it's an executive placement agency or a recruiting agency or a staffing agency. I'm not sure about paying for their services. I would ask if they have a refund policy or a guarantee. Um, and I mean, yeah, it's tough. But I think if you're at an executive level or a director level, like you said earlier, it might be able to help. I would vet their connections, I would vet their strategies. Because sometimes maybe you're already doing what you're supposed to do, and they just do it because they have an extra staff member here or there. But for the staffing agencies where you don't have to pay, where they take a cut of your paycheck, I am definitely for that. Um, okay, so let's see. I see the social anxiety of in-person networking is something to overcome. Yes, I agree with that, Monica. And I too am an introvert, and I understand that it can be very, very challenging. Okay, so let's see. Scrolling down here. Wow, the chat is moving. I love it. Great. Okay, you're all doing it. Wonderful. And yes, Bill definitely wrote a book on social anxiety. Bill, drop that link to your book in the chat here in case anyone wants to take a look. Um, yeah, Natalie, that's also true. Staffing agencies are not created equal, and so if you get a low wall offer, consider going elsewhere, especially if there might be somewhere else that is going to take a little bit less money and give more of that money to you. Ray, you're on your way to an in-person Women Build AI networking event. Wonderful, awesome, great. All right, so that's tactic number one. It's to network, but do it with precision. Tactic number two is to choose your industries wisely, right? We have definitely a winner loser market right now when it comes to the markets that have evolved, and this is an evolution from what I saw earlier this year with a lot of the work around, or last year, a lot of the work around the types of policies that, especially in the United States, President Trump is implementing. And so these are probably the usual suspects that you think have changed over the last little bit. Um, the losers include state and local government, nonprofits, crypto and blockchain, and then non AI roles at big, magnificent seven companies. And so we'll talk a little bit about what all of these mean, right? So state and local governments are seeing downturns now because of budget pressures and hiring freezes. And these are all happening because of different mandates coming from the top, especially for those of you who are here in the United States. So we're about to see cuts in healthcare, which means that healthcare jobs are going to go down. We're probably going to see cuts in some specific, I would say, areas like maybe um, climate change and so forth. And so it's important to know that depending on where you are looking for that next job, you want to be in an area that is critical, that is going to continue to get funded. The second piece is nonprofits. So we're seeing a lot of cuts in funding, right? USAID was cut. We're also seeing that specific areas of nonprofits are also going to get cut. So if your area is, let's say, diversity, equity, inclusion within the HR space, or you're focused on immigrant rights, those are going to be areas that are going to be tough because that funding has been hit. You're not getting the grants that you've seen in the past, and a lot of these nonprofits are going to be running lean. Whereas I think your traditional nonprofits, so if you're going to go to like say like the American Cancer Society or something like that, where it's a very universal type of thing, then I would say that maybe things are going to be a little bit better. Crypto is another area where I think things have not panned out in the ways that we thought that they would. It hit, I think, 126,000 for per Bitcoin earlier last year, but it's definitely been in retreat, getting down in the low 60s. And so the crypto promise and the blockchain promise have not been, I would say, as prevalent as we all hoped. And so that's been different as well. And then the last one is non-AI roles at Magnificent Seven companies. So if you're going to a Meta, a Netflix, a Microsoft, and so forth, I think one of the things that you've also noticed is that these companies are doubling down on AI infrastructure and that everything else is getting cut along the way. I think you see that at Oracle, where you see a lot of people who've been there for 30 years working on things like Sun Microsystems and infrastructure and databases getting cut because Larry Ellison needs to somehow fund not only his data centers, but also his Paramount media buys. All right. I'm glad to see that all of you are introducing yourselves and continue to say hi. Please continue to do that. All right. So, what are the industries that you should run towards, right? Lots of things that you should avoid, but there are things that still matter. I think that, one thing that is really important still that continues to grow, albeit at a much slower rate, is healthcare. Baby boomers are still turning 65 and they're going to turn 65 through next year. Um, and the oldest baby boomer is only 80 years old right now. And baby boomers are people who feel like they want to be invincible. And so, whether you're somebody who wants to build health tech apps, somebody who wants to go work in insurance, or if you want to go in, I guess, if you're good at using bedpans and taking care of people, then healthcare is an area to be, nursing and so forth. AI infrastructure, I think, for the time being, is also going to be one. This is an industry that I think that our government has hinged its success on. And so if you're somebody who's in construction, somebody who knows the ins and outs of a data center from your cloud computing days, then this is something that's going to be incredibly, incredibly helpful. Cybersecurity is another one. So we have all these apps that are out there these days. We now have AI developed apps that are incredibly insecure. We have cyber threats where countries are going to try and attack each other, not on the battlefield, but through wires and computing and the internet. And so if you build cybersecurity skills, you are going to be indispensable for the next 25 years because I think this is where a lot of conflict is going. And then another one is quantum computing. We're really early in this area, but I think that if you can find your way into quantum computing and apply your skills, then you're going to be in an area where you can set yourself up for the future. Because once AI passes and maybe once blockchain passes, I think quantum computing is what's going to be next. And the people that you know these days who are Bitcoin enthusiasts and cryptocurrency experts and AI practitioners are going to be quantum computing enthusiasts here in, I would say, 6 months to a year and a half. What else? Data and analytics. I think that's also an area that's going to continue to grow and an area that you should run towards because the AI boom needs someone to hold it accountable, right? We all know that at the base of all of this AI is data, and so I work in the data and analytics field. You'll see that on my LinkedIn. And one thing that I've discovered is that after 30 to 40 years of data and analytics type vendors all coming on the market, a lot of companies still don't know yet how to manage their data. And so, in order for them to actually take advantage of AI, they need to figure out how the data and analytics side of the house works first. And then finally, there's robotics, right? So you've heard a lot of this from Elon Musk lately. I think robotics is going to be an interesting area, especially when paired up with AI. And we're still very early days with this, but I think it's going to be a fascinating place to be. All right. Number 4 is to become a strategic thinker with the help of AI. I think one of the things that AI is going to change and has already changed for a lot of people is that it's changing how we think about work when we are at work. Um, if you're somebody who has traditionally worked in a job that is very repeatable task heavy, where you're filling out spreadsheets, reaching out to the same contacts over and over again, or shepherding a process, your job is probably at risk. On the other hand, if you are in a job where you need to think about what it is that you need to do in order to get something to market, in order to get something to work, then you are in a strategic thinking type of role where it is less so to be threatened by AI and more so to be something that gets kept because you need to move things forward. And so, what does that mean, right? AI, I think, is something that uses existing data and to do what it thinks that it should do next. But AI cannot think like a visionary. But your past experiences and your vision and your own personal vision can now be something that changes this along the way. And the way I describe this is over the last couple of years is that it's not important to skate to where the puck is because that's where AI is now, but you have to skate to where the puck might be going. And so you have to think boldly, you have to think differently, and you have to try different things that AI may not have considered earlier. And so, one way that you can do about this is you can think about what it means to think strategically for your own career. And we do this in our How to Build a Side Hustle with AI webinar, where we drop our LinkedIn profiles into Claude or ChatGPT and figure out what types of consulting services that we could offer and or figure out what types of career paths that we can take. And we use AI to think and work strategically, um, to think beyond what it can and also to add our own value to what that may be. And so you don't need to wait until you're ready. You just need to literally ship it and go, right? Because that's what it is in the AI world. You just need to act. Yes, AI is a tool to make you more efficient. Yeah. And so, the company I work at, my CTO believes the same in that AI is here to help enhance the work you do. It's not here to replace the work that you do. Okay. And then there's tactic number 5 is when all of that else fails, it's time to look for unlikely opportunities. I think one of the interesting things that comes out of every single, I guess you could say, if it's an economic downturn or recession, is that it may be time to look for something else other than tech if you've been working in tech for a while, and you should follow the demand. So if it's time to go work in robotics, if it's time to fill out medical paperwork or help people heal from their illnesses, there is a way to doing that. And along the way, it's leveraging your transferable skills. If you're a marketer, you know how to communicate. If you are somebody who knows how to write, then you know how to articulate and talk to people about things. If you're someone who can code, you can move into a different industry that's growing and so forth. And a lot of, I think, where we're going to be here in the next couple of years until this whole entire AI thing shakes out is that unconventional is the new conventional. And so whether it means that you definitely have to find yourself maybe even teaching in a classroom as a substitute teacher to get that income, it is okay to do that. And I think that's the other thing is that in Western society at least, and maybe even in Eastern society now, there's always been this belief that your identity is the work you do and that you should love what you do and do what you love so you never have to work a day in your life. But the truth and the reality of that is, I mean, number one, you're never going to really hear that here on Albert's list. Then the number two thing is, right, a lot of us have children. Maybe some of us have mortgages to pay and families to support. And so in this situation, you need to find a way to you need to find a way uh, to get that job. And so if you need a survival job, and if you need to uh, get a job just for the paycheck, that is also okay too. And so you have my permission to do that if you're looking for that level of permission. Rita says, I actually became a teacher in France. Funny coincidence. Tell us a little bit about that experience. Can you type that in? Yeah. Um, and we're now 19 slides in, so let's actually look at our job search market optimism. We're going to go ahead and share those results. Um, 34% of you feel pessimistic about the market, 58% feel neutral, and 9% of you feel positive. So this is actually a lot different than what I've been seeing in the past here. At certain points over the last 4 years, I've seen where folks are incredibly pessimistic and also there's a lot of neutrals. But today we're seeing 9% on the positive number, which I think it's really, really great. Yeah. Chris says 49% of adults living 18 to 30 are living with parents or someone else. Yeah, I think that's also a situation too where the cost of housing has risen and the cost of goods continue to go up. And so launching yourself into adulthood is a whole lot harder than ever. Yeah. So if you're somebody who is looking for those transferable skills and you're looking to move into that new area, I think it's important that you know how to do that and really figure out and strategically look at what's next. And you can use a little bit of AI for this, or you can do some old fashioned pen and paper. Number one, you audit your skills. And so you don't just say what you do, right? I'm not a product marketing manager, but you talk about the type of work that you do. Like you're a writer, you are somebody who plans events, you are someone who knows how to do podcasts, somebody who knows how to launch products, somebody who knows how to talk to engineering. Then you figure out the demand signals, right? And we did this a couple of slides ago where you look at the industries that are growing and you look at the growing industries that need what it is that you provide. And then you position yourself for that and you look for the results that are transferable. And then you target the people who are there and you speak to them. You go to alumni networks. Maybe you reach out to people who are here in this webinar chat right now, and you say hello to each other, and you hang out, and you get those skills, and you get those connections. So this comes to the part where I promote stuff because, I would be remiss if I didn't do that. There's a lot of other things coming up here on Albert's list that I want to invite you all to as a part of our job search and also AI skills work. And so we have career focused webinars that are going to help you out along the way as you job search. And these are all connected by way of QR code. So if you're interested, go ahead and push your phone up. Tomorrow, we have the June 2026 jobs report and inflation update. We meet with a college professor every single month to talk about the state of the job market and go through the numbers and the trends of what is going on. Right? Because a lot of us are probably thinking, our job search sucks and we can't explain it to people. Well, that webinar is going to help tell you how. On Thursday, we have a how to build AI skills for your career. And so this is a webinar that'll be led by me. I'm going to be talking about some of the ways that you can use AI to build your skills, including some of our other upcoming webinars that are going to help you. And then we have 2 hours to freedom. Build a job hunt agent with Claude on Monday for $27. We're going to use AI to help you build that job hunt that can be automated and at scale, all while you sleep. Yeah, and we'll email you the details for all the next sessions. There's also how to build the job search operating system. Build a strategy before you make the move. And that's going on next Monday with Nader Molai. He's going to talk about how you can use AI to build that job hunt strategy before you even make a move or reach out to people. If you're unavailable to meet to come to these, we also have other events that are going on our Gumroad page. These are actually not events, but rather a collection of webinars and other content that we've done. And so we have the resume template that got me 35 offers. That's a free offering. I'm going to go ahead and paste that here because I think you should all at least go home with something. Let me see here. Here you go. And so this is a resume that I've used to get me 35 offers over the last 4 job searches. Feel free to take a look at that. We also have the Job Seeker Survival Kit, which is a collection of webinars and videos that we have had over the past 6 years that focus on how to job hunt. And today I'm offering it for just $12.35. It has over 40 hours of content in it, and it's going to help you really get the basics of your job search and what you want to do. And if you also want to go through our job search bootcamp live and on demand, it's a 6-hour bootcamp, and we're offering that for $14.95 today. So take a look at that. Let me know what you think, and I'm happy to help you out and answer any questions. If you're also looking to learn more about I have also other opportunities that are coming up as well. We're here to help make things easy for you. And so I want to help you really, really discover some of these things as I discover them. On July 27th, we're doing 2 hours to freedom. Build a fleet of AI agents for work. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a couple of AI agents manually that include competitive intelligence agents or a YouTube script, something that's going to save you multiple hours per week as you figure out what to do on a day-to-day basis for work. There's also how to break into an AI career in 10 weeks. And so for those of you who want directly to take advantage of this AI and robotics trend, this is going to be a webinar that you are going to love. It is done with the Launch Institute of Technology, and they have cohort programs that they launch every 6 weeks focused on AI, robotics, and you can also use government funding, especially if you're in the state of California, to help you break through and pay for some of these courses, which I think is incredibly important. And then there's how to use AI to turbocharge your personal brand in 2026. We're going to show you how to use some of those AI agents to not only build a brand, but also automate it at scale to be like some of those people who seem to never stop posting on TikTok or LinkedIn so that you can go ahead and post as many times as you need to in order to be successful in getting attention and in your job search. So, with that said, right, the market is currently really tough, but it has its cracks and it has its abilities that you can do to break through. So I want to encourage you to find them. I want you to encourage you to go there and don't wait them for the market to come to you. And with that, I'm Albert. I want to thank you for your time today. And I look forward to seeing you all very soon at our upcoming events and our resources. In the meantime, I'm here to also answer some questions. So, yeah, feel free to ask your questions. Let's see. Anonymous attendee writes, I am looking to land my first job, so I am not sure what to do. I am trying to upskill while applying to jobs and internships. Pretty tough. Any recommendations? Yeah, I would say jobs and internships, going to networking events, going into associations that are in accordance to the type of work that you do, and coming to Albert's List webinars because we have a lot of people. We had I think 1,200 people at our webinars last month, and we're on pace to go over another 1,000 this month. So you never know who you're going to meet along the way. Um, let's see. Yes. Well, thank you, Natalie. It's good to see you again. I appreciate it. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Suman. Thank you, Rita. Let's see. Is there still a dominant age bias? Unfortunately, I think yes. I think we're at a point here where because the job market is bad and because we have so much newfangled technology, that ageism is a thing. And so update your resume strategically. Don't put in your date of graduation if you're more than 10 years out, among other things. And so make sure that you that you are hiding that as much as you possibly can until you get to the interview process. Do visa holders have a chance on the current job market? They have received plenty of calls but never heard back after hearing about visa status. The answer to that is it depends. I think if you're in AI and you're very strong at what you do in AI, then you're going to do very, very well. If you're looking for a job and you have a visa and something that's a lot more generic, then I would not say that that would be the case. Okay, how do we navigate overqualification for jobs? So that comes down to how you position yourself and how you tell the story. And so that comes down to whether you say that if you're saying like you have, 25 years of experience in something, move away from that. Talk instead about what it means to um, talk instead about the experience that you have and the work that you've done versus the years of experience and the impact that you can bring based on your background. All right, let's see. You still can't save the chat? All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save the chat really quickly myself, and then I'm going to drop a version of the chat into the chat here. So let me see. Okay, we're going to go to documents. We're going to go to Zoom. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Here's the chat for those of you here. Cool. Okay, so let's see. What else do we have here? Any other tips and words of advice for non-technical new grads? Um, I think it would be to build projects with AI and showcase how AI fluent you are. So build a side hustle from it. Have something of proof, whether it's something that you can post online or that's something that people can go to for a portfolio. Let's see. Rachel says, if it's public information, you want to search and see if the specific company hires visa holders. Do you think we should avoid cold applying completely and just focus on what we discussed here? I think you can cold apply, but I don't think that cold applying should be the center of your job search. If all you're doing is cold applying, then I think you're going to have very low odds of of getting a callback unless you are very, very, very qualified. Let's see. Okay. Are there any resources you recommend for working with someone on your resume or LinkedIn strategy? I'm happy to work on your LinkedIn strategy with you if you'd like. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to also join my job search community. We also have a lot of coaches in there as well who can help out along as well. And we also do some webinars on LinkedIn, although we haven't had one on resumes in a while. Um, yeah. Is cold applying even worth it? I have a question. So if there's a job opening, should I ask for referrals and wait for them to respond? Yes, you should. A cold application is going to have significantly lower odds than a warm application. Although even I think getting referred these days can be pretty difficult too. Okay. Rita says, do you think it's still realistic for a Canadian UX designer to get sponsored for a US company? I've always been interested in the US. Yes, I think if you get referred, and I think if you're also an exceptional designer, and you come very highly qualified, and you probably have skills that nobody in the US currently has, or that few people do have. I used to have 100% conversion between recruiter call and the next step, but in 2026, this conversion has been less than 60%. Why do you think the recruiters are finding me a good fit, but not the hiring managers? Is it due to hiring managers looking for a 100% exact fit? Yes, that is the case. There are so many applicants these days that I would say hiring managers are looking for exact fits and they're looking for those purple unicorns. And so, unfortunately, the conversion rate is not as good as it used to be. Lack writes, should I even bring up the question regarding visa sponsor? If I don't bring it up at the accepting offer stage, then there's a possibility they'll find out and let me go. Yeah, they're going to run a background check on you and they're going to know anyway. So the sooner that they find out, the better it's going to be. Okay. All right. What is the best way to find an HR email address for any company in the US? LinkedIn recruiters don't usually respond after applying to a job. I think you have to use one of those like sales tools. I don't remember what it is, Rachel, but I know that there's a bunch of like, like hunter.io and other websites like that where you can find the emails of folks who are HR recruiters and so forth. Um, Nice. I finally reached 200 connections on LinkedIn after my 2K account was hacked and deleted in December. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Alex, you're 10% back of the way there. Congratulations. Yeah, hunter.io. Yep. Thanks, Vincent. Cool. All right. So we are headed towards the end here. We have many more events coming up. I'll take one more question if there is any, but if there aren't any more, I want to thank everyone again for your time today. We have many more webinars coming up. And I look forward to seeing many of you there at these webinars as we figure out this entire job search together. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll talk soon, and we'll see you again. Goodbye, and we'll have the recruiting up. We'll have the recording up in a very short moment. All right, bye, everybody.